let's start us off with a back-to-back, shall we? I think that's what the schedule makers had in store for us. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And if you haven't recovered from the Australian GP, sorry, too late, because we have to get all ramped up and go again. It's the 2025 Chinese GP preview show. Again, as I said before, you've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. Cody, how's it hanging on a lovely, well, it's cold, and apparently we're going to get all 4 seasons in one day. We had rain and thunderstorms go through, and we're going to have snow in about 2 hours. But other than that, how you doing?
It's been wacky. I didn't need a coat yesterday, and now we had hail and storms, and now it's going to snow. So, yeah, it's crazy in Chicago. But very happy to have back-to-back races, especially since we're all getting our first fixes since the break. So, what better way to keep that going than another race right out of the get-go?
Yep, and we are excited, as always, for all of it, and we're going to be here for all of it, as we are always, as we do. So if you have found us, welcome along. You can find us Blue Sky, Twitter, X, whatever that's called, Instagram, Discord, Reddit, and, of course, YouTube. One handle for all of that, at Outlap F1 Podcast, is the handle. Takes you to all of those places. If you're on YouTube and you would like what you're seeing and you enjoy what you're hearing, you can click a like, or you can subscribe to us if you want to follow us on YouTube. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, if you want to leave us a 5-star review, that would help us out specifically on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. What does that all do? That just helps our content come up a little bit better in search results and allows us to get our stuff to you that much quicker. You can email the show, as always. Chatnow at outlapf1.com takes you there. Thank you so much to those who continue to support the show, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and, of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to help support the show and get a shout-out, you can see our Anchor page. We put it in all our show notes when we post our content. $1, $5, all goes into trying to keep our technology as relevant as we can, keep everything updated and relevant so that we can continue to be on the cutting edge, as they are, of what we do here at Outlap F1 Podcast Studios. Look, I made it sound very official right there. But anyway, you can see our link in our show notes if you'd like to do that, and we would be most appreciative if you would. All right, with the particulars out of the way, before we hop into the Chinese Grand Prix weekend proper, there is a bit of news, and the big story, I think, that came out Monday. Apparently, the FIA is not happy. That's what I saw. I saw FIA not happy with what the teams were doing with the rear wings, and they have decided to throw down a technical directive, dun dun dun, aimed at more strictly patrolling flexing on the rear wing. This apparently appears to be the subject. Whether this is almost double diffuser territory, I don't know, but we're quickly approaching that, apparently. So what has changed? So they were going to do this for the rear wings and the front wings for Spain. What they're doing is they're moving the test up to the Chinese Grand Prix weekend for the rear wing only. And so what has to happen is it's the same 75 kilogram vertical load. So they put a 75 kilogram weight on either side of the wing, and they want to see how much it bends. And in the prior directive, it could move between what they call the main plane and the rear wing flap. It could move between 2 millimeters, anywhere from 0 to 2 millimeters, and you would still pass the test. In China, it's only going to be allowed to move from 0 to 0.75 millimeters. And then after China, it's going to only be allowed to move between 0 and 0.5 millimeters. The reason there's the one race exception is because they came out with this on Monday. Everybody's already got their wings basically loaded onto planes from Australia anyway, and they didn't think it was fair to try to impose a new potential technical directive that could maybe catch somebody out. I read a lot about this, and from what it seems, number one, the FIA did a whole bunch of tests on this, even at the Australian Grand Prix weekend, and all cars were found to be in compliance. So nobody has been disqualified. There is no talk of any team potentially being outside of the rules as they were. There also doesn't appear to be any speculation of any one particular team being outside of even these new rules. They think it's just a question of trying to tighten everything up. But anyway, Cody, what's your take on all of this? Is this a lot of much ado about nothing, or could there be something here?
I guess it depends on how you're looking at it. If you're looking at it that we're going from 2 millimeters to 0.5, that's from what the tolerance was before. That is a big reduction. You're going, to only 25% of what was allowed before. But if you're looking at it in terms of like absolutes, 2 millimeters to start with is not a lot. So 0.5 millimeter is also really, really not a lot. But like, we're talking about like a reduction of like, what, I don't know, like that much. Like it's teeny tiny amounts. Now, I don't know how much load that wing is under, during a race. So maybe that will actually have some sort of effect, but I don't think we're going to see anything super crazy, especially since it's only for the rear wing. We're still not seeing any changes to the front wing flex rules until the Spanish Grand Prix, and that was the one that was supposed to be the bigger issue as far as I understand. So I don't think we're going to see anything so far as like, oh my gosh, suddenly Red Bull is like way on top now. Like it's not going to be anything like that as much as I might want it to be. But I do think it's interesting that they're doing this so quickly. Like we've only had one race so far this year, so it's really fast for a technical directive to come out on, trying to narrow in on people potentially skirting their way around the rules. But I don't know. We're just gonna have to see.
Yeah, I mean, unless you find out on Friday we're failing their initial scrutineering or something like that, I think this is probably much ado about not much. At least that's kind of my initial read on it, because, I mean, first of all, they didn't kick anybody out of the last race. And we're not talking about a lot of distance here. Like you said, it's really, really on the margins here. Could it mean that somebody might have to put more stiffness into their rear wing or reinforce it somehow so that it doesn't do what it was inherently doing? We will have to see. That will be the interesting thing. Like if you see on Friday, all of a sudden there's an extra part on the Ferrari or the McLaren that wasn't there before
to hold it in place.
Yeah, that kind of keeps it where, so it can't do what it was in theory designed to do. The other mind that I have on this is, you put the rules in place, and as long as you are within that set of guidelines, you should be free to innovate as you can. I don't know why this is being made the big deal. I don't think this is the magic McLaren sauce. I think it's a lot to do with the floor and a lot to do with how the front wing talks to the floor and all that other stuff that they've been kind of building for the last 3+ years in these regs. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see if this is if it does get closer. My guess is you might not even see much effect of this, if at any at all. But you do have those long straights, so I'm sure there will be fans out there ready with the rear wing cameras all ready to go, and you'll see the vertical lines, and I see it moving. So anyway, get ready to talk about this. This will be, I'm sure, the main talking point come the Friday practice is who's doing what with their rear wings. All right. So our next story in our news segment here, unfortunately, because this is such a quick turnaround, there was an issue getting a lot of the freight out of Melbourne because of those storms. That same system that did nothing but rain all day on Sunday kind of hung around a little bit even into Monday. And there were some technical issues with the freight plane that meant that it couldn't take off on time. So normally what would have been expected is, a lot of these teams, when they do back-to-backs, they send an advanced team to, put the garages together and get the pit rigging all ready to go and all that kind of good stuff. A lot of them were there and were just kind of sitting around because the stuff that they were charged with putting together hadn't made it. But the good news is, as of Wednesday morning in China, it looks like everything has now arrived. It's even caught out, according to the reports, caught out McLaren, it caught out Mercedes, Red Bull, and Aston Martin. So all of the delayed freight has arrived, including Pirelli. So some of the tires that were supposed to be on spec literally were not around. So, we were all dressed up with nothing to do apparently for a couple of days. But it does look like everything has now arrived. It does look like there's not going to be any issue or changes needed to the schedule. There was an FAA document that came out that basically said any of the normal curfew rules, because we're aware of this issue, are kind of being suspended for the time being. So there's not any concerns about getting ready for the first and only practice session. The governing body is, like I said, allowed to break the teams to break the curfew if they need to. International freight can be a problem. Cody, what's your take?
I guess this is the issue that's potentially there anytime we have back-to-back race weekends. Is it's not like in the United States when you have NASCAR, weekend after weekend after weekend. You're just traveling around one country. It's a big country, but still going around one place. You're not crossing any oceans or anything like that. So this is an issue that can happen. I guess, fortunately, Shanghai, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that far from Melbourne, but it's still a pretty good way to go. So I have to wonder what would actually happen if things were delayed even more. Would they have to change session times, squeeze things together? On a sprint weekend like this, you've only got one practice session before you start getting into the competitive qualifying sessions. So do you think they would ever do such a thing as just I can't imagine they would cancel the only practice session that they have. They'd have to probably do the practice session and cancel the sprint qualifying and then do the order based on championship standing or something like that. I'm sure they've got this in the rules, how they would handle this. Actually, I guess you would hope that they would.
What I'm guessing is they would have, if they wanted to change the schedule, all 10 teams would kind of have to agree to do that. That's when stuff is changed on the fly. It's usually with the consent of all 10 teams. They go to the FIA. They say, we understand this is a problem. We are ready to proceed in this way. And then, a document will come out that'll say, this is how we're attacking this. Maybe sprint qualifying gets moved to Saturday. Does early morning Saturday and then the sprint, and then they do the main quali later on in that day to try to make it up. But that would require, I think that, like I said, the consent of all 10 teams. And what you normally have is if you have a team that's got all their freight there and they're ready to go, they're just going to sit back and go, well, we're ready to go, put your car together when you can. But, because it is the Piranha Club. But there would have been at least a meeting or a conversation about it. Luckily, we're not going to go through that section of the rule book this weekend, which I am very, very, very thankful for, because I really didn't want to have to brush up on all of that, because it's hard enough when, sessions get canceled. Like we talked about, even in Australia, we had the F2 race get canceled because they just literally couldn't fit it in because the weather was so bad. So luckily in this case, the freight has made it. I think if there was even one more day of delay, and it would have prevented scrutineering and stuff from happening, there would have been more of a conversation about what we could do and how we would do it. I think the latest example of trying to futz around with the schedule would have been Imola a couple years ago, when they had all the flooding and everything, and they were trying to figure out, they got there, they were trying to put everything together, they were trying to figure out how do we get this in, and then they just kind of came to the conclusion kind of at the 11th hour, look, this isn't viable. We don't want people trying to get themselves to the facility in all of this flood. Not to mention the facility itself is flooded. So we're just going to not bother to do it. And that race was never canceled. It's permanently suspended. It has never been picked up ever since then. So it's the race that will never happen. But anyway, speaking of this weekend, and just to kind of brush up, because it's our first sprint weekend, so we just kind of wanted to throw in what a sprint weekend looks like if you've never seen one before. So instead of the traditional FP1, FP2, FP3, you only get one practice. You have 1 hour to get your car ready to go, at least for the first part of the weekend. So you can do whatever you want to do in that practice, but after that, you are set up and your car comes out for qualifying. It is in Parc Fermé through the end of the sprint race. So you could do the traditional knockout format for sprint qualifying, although the sessions are they're compressed. It's not as much time. And I believe for the first two sessions, it's mandatory medium tires. And then for the SQ3, it's mandatory soft tires. So, you got to use different compounds of tires, not necessarily something you would normally see during a traditional qualifying. The sprint, race, air quote, itself is 30% of the normal race distance, and points are awarded from P1 to P8, with 1 point going down the line all the way down to 1 point. So you can maximum get would be 8 points. If you got P8, you could get 1 point, but those count as much as any other points do in the championship. After the sprint, everybody takes a couple of hours. The cars come out of Parc Fermé at that point. You can make changes to them, and you can get ready for the traditional Sunday qualifying, which happens on Saturday afternoon. And once that grid is set for that, then Sunday is not unaffected by all of this, and it's just the regular race that runs the regular distance, and the normal points are awarded. So, yeah, just kind of wanted to give everybody a brush up on the sprint format if you hadn't seen one before.
Yeah, I think it's fun, the sprint weekends, in a way, because you start off having an actual race where there really hasn't been a whole lot of time put into car setup and the like, so you might see things a little mixed up, which can be fun.
Yeah, I mean, when you're there, it feels, you can definitely feel the amped up pressure, versus when you've gone to, and like the Friday is just going to be FP1 and FP2. Okay, that's a lot more. Even as a fan, you could be a lot more leisurely about what you're doing. You're probably going to go snap a whole lot more photos and stuff like that. You're going to get some different vantage points of the venue. However, when it's sprint qualifying, you're basically in your spot, because that's pretty much everybody is where they're going to be. And it can be an intense session, and it goes very, very quickly. It goes 45 minutes and it's gone like that. And then you actually have a result, and then that goes right into the sprint. And the sprint prep feels very much like the normal race prep. Everybody comes out, they do the same parade laps, the same recon laps and stuff like that. And they basically get ready for basically a mini race. And then they run that. And then after that, it's kind of weird because you have to almost reset, go, okay, whatever happened, throw that out. Well, let's set up for the traditional qualifying. So if you've had a bad start to your weekend, you can rally a little bit. That I think is good about the format. But it doesn't give teams a whole lot of breathing room, I'll tell you that. It definitely feels like they're under the gun the whole time.
Also, from the perspective of being at the race, I think having a sprint race is kind of fun. Like, I guess from a perspective of viewing on TV, it's kind of like, all right, it's this lecture race, who knows how much is actually going to change, how many passes. There's not really a whole lot of pit strategy that goes into it. But the United States Grand Prix has been a race weekend that has had the sprint for a bunch of years now.
Yep.
I was fortunate to get to go there on a sprint weekend, and it's really cool. Like, it's a great little appetizer for the main event. At least at the United States Grand Prix, it's kind of like later in the day, so it's not as hot,
right?
And
which is always helpful.
You're getting that extra excitement. Just another little bit about being there is when you're there for the race start, and I am very fortunate that Andy has awesome tickets for the U.S. Grand Prix. We're like,
go to Instagram and find us on there. You'll get to see the vantage.
Yep. It is quite an experience, but it gets really, really, really crowded by us on race day for the race start. Everyone wants to squeeze in there to see the start line. So it's kind of cool that for the sprint race, it's not quite so nutty.
Yeah.
So you kind of get to enjoy that experience a little bit more, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's the one thing I noticed right away. The first year I even went, I was like, everyone is literally on top of you during race day, especially during those half an hour after they open the pit lane and cars are coming out, and you're trying to get a vantage of what celebrities are there. And, oh, look, there's the Sky hosts, and there's, Jensen Button, and they're doing interviews, and there's the driver, and there's Jackie Stewart standing around, and you're trying to get all this. It's a little bit almost of visual overwhelmness to an extent that, like, there have been times where I will just, everyone else is standing, I will sit down for 5 minutes, just to kind of take it back, get back up, and kind of get back into it, right before everything starts. And then there is a settling in. It's like usually the first 5 laps, everyone's standing, and then everybody kind of, sits back down and then kind of figures it out. And they're like, okay, we'll only get up if there's something really significant. And what I would say, at least in my sprint experience, is I've been there when the sprint race itself has been kind of a dud. And I've been there when the sprint race has been ridiculously significant and people are crashing into each other and there's championship implications all over the place. So, it can vary. So the hope is, I mean, the last time they did a sprint in China, the sprint race, I think, was very entertaining. You saw some great moves, I think, from Fernando Alonso, especially late. So let's hope that we get kind of more of the same of that ilk versus just a parade around that goes for 30% and nobody uses their tires and everybody finishes where they qualified. That's not a whole lot of fun. But anyway, those quali sessions, I think, make it interesting. You do get kind of a little sick of knockout qualifying by the time you're done with the main one because you've already done it. But it's still better. It's better than just additional practices. It's certainly better than a Pirelli tire test. The Charles Leclerc late lap thing that was, is the meme around COTA, notwithstanding, that's because that was the only lap that counted of that entire hour. And you had to wait the entire hour to even see that. So there was nothing that happened. You had no idea what was going on. Everybody was doing these Pirelli runs. The scoring wasn't scoring anybody. So you literally had no idea what was going on. It was the stupidest thing ever to try to be there to watch it. But it made it Pirelli's day, and they got their data. So I guess that's what's important. But all right, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to re-rack. We're going to come on back. We will hop into the Chinese Grand Prix proper. We're going to get into our track facts. We're going to talk a little bit about the weather, or the rain, or more specifically, the lack thereof this time. And then we're going to come back and we're going to try to take our shot at what we think is going to happen over the course of the weekend. We'll also let you know where and when you can find your F1 sessions. I hope you like midnight sessions. It's going to be us F1 fans with our lights on in the dark, and everyone else is going to be sleeping, because if you want to watch this thing live, you got to set an alarm. So we're going to tell you all about that. So come on back. We'll get into it. All right, welcome back on in. This is season 7, episode number 4 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Chinese GP preview show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just wrapped up kind of our news, and now we're going to get into the Chinese GP weekend proper. And we shall start, as we always do, with our track facts brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. Cody, tell us about the Shanghai Audi International Circuit.
All right, so the Shanghai Audi International Circuit is located in the Jiading district. Hope I'm saying that right. Probably not, but close enough, right? Located in Shanghai, China. Number of laps for this Grand Prix is 56, and the length of the circuit is 5.451 kilometers. That's 3.387 miles, and it consists of 16 turns. The tire selection from Pirelli for this race is going to be C2 for the hard, C3 for medium, and C4 for soft. And their track characteristics, all out of 5, are going to be a 3 for traction, 3 for asphalt grip, 3 for asphalt abrasion, 5 out of 5 for track evolution, a 4 for tire stress, 4 for braking, a 4 for lateral load, and a 3 for downforce. The qualifying lap record here was set in 2019 by Sebastian Vettel with a 1 minute 27.064 seconds, while the race lap record, we have to go all the way back to 2004 when it was set by Michael Schumacher with a 1 minute 32.238 seconds. Most wins in China is going to go to Lewis Hamilton with a whopping 6 wins here. Second place is a tie between Fernando Alonso and Nico Rosberg with 2 wins apiece. And the most constructor wins, no surprise, is going to go to Mercedes with 6, Ferrari in second place with 4, and then a tie between McLaren and Red Bull with 3 wins apiece. I suppose we're going to see that tie probably broken this weekend. What's the circuit like, Andy?
Yeah, it is a circuit that is actually supposed to be visually pleasing when seen from the air. It's designed to look like the Chinese symbol for Shang, meaning upwards. It is equally pleasing to the drivers, actually, when they're on the ground and driving around it. It's a unique start to the lap as the drivers fly into the ever-tightening turns 1 and 2 before they dart left through 3 and 4. The super high G-force turns 7 and 8 are always loved by the drivers, while the circuit also features one of the longest straights on the calendar. a 1.2 kilometer stretch that separates turns 13 and 14. As for the weather, we do not have to worry about the Australian storm here. It is going to be sunny pretty much right down the middle. It might just be a tad windy. So maybe the invisible weather may be the thing that affects the cars here. Friday, mainly sunny sky, high of 77 right down the middle. Winds out of the west at 10 to 20, so a little bit gusty there, but a 0% chance of rain. Saturday, for your sprint and main qualifying, sunny skies, high of 79. Winds out of the west-southwest, again, 10 to 20. Another 0% chance of rain. And for Sunday, for the race, some sun in the morning with increasing clouds during the afternoon, but continued warm, high of 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds out of the west-southwest at 10 to 15, so maybe not as windy. A scant 5% chance of rain. All right. Well, and the other big thing to note that I believe the entirety of this track has been resurfaced. So this will be yet another one where we are going to see running on basically a virgin surface. So there's always unique things that come with that. It usually means more grip and more degradation on the tires because they're gripping that much more. So it'll be interesting to see how these cars get set up. There's only going to be the one practice session. I imagine that we rated it a 5 out of 5 for track evolution. So it's going to be a changing track. Do we see significant setup changes after the sprint, after there's going to be a layer of rubber down on this track? So all things to kind of pay attention to as we get into it. All right, so now what do we think is actually going to happen during this race weekend? It's time for our predictions. Hopefully I'm going to parlay a second victory of the season as I'm currently leading 1-0. I'm going to try to keep the score as we go throughout this so that I don't lose track of where we are. All right. So we are, as we are always apt to do, we start with the pole sitter. The 2024 pole sitter was of no surprise to anybody at this point of the season was Max Verstappen. Do we think he can pull it out of the bag yet again? Cody, what's your thought here?
I don't think so after what we saw during qualifying in Australia. My predictions for the Australian Grand Prix only had testing to go off of, so I was still kind of thinking like maybe he can do it. But now after seeing an actual race weekend in the bag here, I got to go with Lando Norris to be the pole sitter here. McLaren looks really fast, and in the past, Norris has had just a little bit of an edge over Piastri in qualifying.
It's a good guess. I love it. However, I think Oscar's got something. I think he's a little bit pissed. And I think when we saw a pissed off Piastri at the end of the Australian Grand Prix, he had a point to prove. And if he doesn't want to have any of the team order issue, the best thing he can do is go out and put it on pole on Saturday. So it's going to be for the main race. This is what we're talking about for qualifying. I've got Oscar Piastri actually pipping Lando Norris just a little bit here in qualifying pace because I think he's going to be well motivated. Let's put it that way. All right, so the pole lap time last year was our first race in China since 2019, and that was a 1:33.660, so a bit off of our track records. I think that was a bit of a shocker, I think, especially to us when we looked at it, but at least now we kind of know where these cars are. So, Cody, what you got for a qualifying pole lap time?
I'm going to go quite a bit faster than last year, actually getting close to a second faster than last year. But I think that's partly because of how good that McLaren looks. So I'm going with a 1 minute 32.800.
All right, very good. We'll enter that. I also have them going faster than last year. I don't know that they're going to be a full second. If they're a full second, I'm just going to sit down and go, ooh, and make my spine tingle there. But I don't see that. I do think they're going to go fast though. I've got a 1:33.014 from that time. All right, so moving to the main race actually, you know what? We'll do the sprint podium first, then we'll come back to the main race. So we're going to skip down to the end. Cody, what you got for a sprint podium?
I do agree with the angry Piastri prediction, although Piastri doesn't seem to really get that angry. Even when he is like irked, he doesn't really get that out of his skin. But I do think he's going to be pushing really hard to make sure that he stays in contention for the championship because he doesn't want the team orders starting to come down. So I think it's going to be Piastri taking the sprint win. I've got Lando Norris following up in second, and then Max Verstappen in third.
All right. I actually have the exact opposite of the McLaren running order. I think opposite you this entire weekend, which is kind of interesting. I do think the sprints tend to favor a little bit Lando. He's kind of had the better of them lately. I mean, Oscar has definitely won a sprint before. It could be either one of them. But I got a funny feeling I think Lando will nail the sprint qualifying, and I think Oscar may nail the main race qualifying with given more time, because that tends to be Oscar's progression. Is he kind of starts off, he's a little bit adrift, and then as it builds up, he gets closer and closer and might just overtake Lando there. So I've got for the sprint, I've got Lando Norris taking P1, got Oscar Piastri right behind him in P2, and I do think Max Verstappen is not going anywhere anytime soon, so I've got him coming home in P3. All right, so now we will turn to the main race on Sunday, and we shall start with that with our prediction of the podium. Last year's podium was Max Verstappen taking the win, Lando Norris, a surprising at that point P2, and Sergio Perez. Oh my God, how far we have fallen away. It was a 1-2 in Red Bull qualifying that for that main race, and a 1-3 as it turned out. So Sergio Perez came home in P3 last year. But Cody, what do you have for main race podium?
That really does make it seem like so long ago. I've got the McLaren's flip-flopped from the sprint. So I've got Lando Norris taking home the win, Oscar Piastri coming in second, and Max Verstappen in third. So pretty much what we were thinking the podium was going to be for the last race.
All right, very good. I, again, have gone opposite my McLaren prediction here. I have Oscar Piastri coming home P1. I've got Lando Norris coming home P2. I do have Max Verstappen coming home in P4, but it's not on the podium. So I'm going to give it to George Russell because I think he's just there and it's decent weather. And I think they found some things in that car. So let's see if we have, if the Mercedes can step up and maybe challenge Max a little bit on pace, but let's see how that rolls. I wouldn't be surprised if Max Verstappen comes home in P3, but I'm also going for a bit of a home run in the prediction here. So we'll see where we go there. All right. So our fastest lap, even though we don't get a point for it anymore in FIA terms, we still give points out for it. The 2024 fastest lap was actually set by Fernando Alonso, and it was a 137.810. All right, Cody, who do you have for setting that fastest lap, and what do you have for lap time?
I got Lando Norris pretty much doing the same three-peat he did last weekend. And so he's got the race win, the pole, and now I'm giving him the fastest lap as well. And I've got him doing it with a 1 minute 37.572 seconds.
All right, very good. I, again, have gone opposite on the McLaren thing. I think this is going to be if Oscar's going to make a statement, it's going to be here. It almost has to be. So I've got him taking the fastest lap. I have a bit faster than your time is. I've got a 137.258. All right, so for our bonus picks, we've gone with P6, P7, and P8. This should actually be quite interesting because it's kind of the lower part of the points where things can get all jumbled up, as certainly was the case last time. If we had tried this last time, we would have been over whatever, because I don't think any of us had the final order in the latter half of the top 10. So I'll go first here. I've got Lewis Hamilton recovering a bit from last week, coming home with P6. I've got Andrea Kimi Antonelli once again getting into the points and coming home P7. And I've got Carlos Sainz, because again, I think that Williams form is real. I think they will be in there. I do think there will be a little bit of natural decanting, but I think that's where they're going to probably settle in into the lower parts of the points, but in the points nonetheless. Carlos Sainz coming home in P8. Cody, what you got for bonus picks?
I have the Ferraris both improving from last weekend. I think Charles Leclerc is going to be the better of the two, though. So I've got Charles Leclerc in P6. I've got Lewis Hamilton in P7. And then, just like you, I do think we're going to see the Williams in the points. However, I think it's probably going to be, at least for now, Albon being the better of the two. So I've got Albon in P8.
All right, very good. We will see how all of this plays out. And last thing for our prop bet. I like this one. Will we have a rookie, number one wreck. And number two, cause a full safety car. We went many races last year without a safety car. We've gone 1-for-1 so far with lots of safety cars and lots of rookies causing them. So, Cody, what's your thought on our rookie class, and do they keep it within the lines this weekend?
I was kind of hemming and hawing on this one because there's a lot of rookies, and they caused a lot of safety cars last weekend. I think they're going to probably try to err more on the side of safety and just bring in the car home this weekend. But being that there are so many rookies on the grid right now, I do think someone is going to mess up badly enough to cause a full safety car.
All right, very good. I'm with you. I think the chances of somebody doing something, there is a lot of treachery even in this track, even if it's dry. The fact that it's a new surface, the fact that these guys don't usually come here, there's a lot of things that could easily catch somebody out. And, it not only mentioned, we've got a sprint. So, you're going to get all amped up for that. There's in the main qualifying and all sorts of stuff. So I do think at some point we will see the safety car. And I do think a rookie will cause it. So I'm going to head and say yes as well. All right. So we will find out if any and all of these things may or may not come true. And we will recap it all in our review on Sunday. Speaking of this weekend, where and when can you find your F1 over the course of the weekend, especially on your ESPN family of networks? Also, don't forget F1 TV. It also has the exclusive streaming rights, at least as of right now. They've got their new package. We just updated ourselves to the new Premier package. It was definitely worth it. Had to figure out how to work my equipment a little bit. I have made adjustments. I have hardwired things, and I figured out how to get my setup to work by the end of last weekend. So I should hopefully be all good now moving forward. But if you are on your ESPN family of networks and that's how you choose to stream or watch through traditional cable, this is where and when you can find your sessions. FP1 will start Thursday, 11:25 p.m. Eastern. So a little bit of prime time F1 if you were so inclined. That session will air on ESPN2. The sprint qualifying session, if you're a late night or early owl, this one's for you. 3:25 a.m. Eastern. So that's 2:30 a.m. in the Central Time Zone on ESPN2. The sprint itself will air Friday 10:55 p.m. Eastern. So Friday night, you got a chance to actually watch a meaningful F1 session right in the heart of prime time. Yes, I know it's going against that big old, basketball thing, but maybe you can take a break from that and watch 45 minutes of a sprint and enjoy your racing. That'll be on ESPNU. The traditional qualifying will take place. There won't be any more basketball done at that point. So if you're out and you're at a bar, you might as well stay out and catch the sprint and catch the qualifying Saturday, 2:55 a.m. Eastern. That'll be on ESPN2. And your race comes at you fast and furious, 3 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Central, Sunday morning on Big ESPN. There are also re-airs, I believe, on ESPN News, I think at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and again at 9 o'clock. So if you're not crazy like I am and have to watch the damn thing live, there's options for you. If you're a member of F1 TV, you can watch the race on demand as soon as it's over. So that's the great thing about all of that. So you can also sync up your onboards and sync up your timing screens and watch it like you would. Just stay off of social media because God knows we'll be talking about it. But other than that, you can watch it when you'd like. All right. So I guess that's pretty much our rundown of what we wanted to talk to you guys about. Cody, any final thoughts as we head into weekend number 2?
Oh man, the times for these sessions is going to be brutal. Your comment about being out at the bar, I can tell you that if I was out at the bar until after qualifying was over, I would be coming home in some really rough shape. So probably not going to be that case for me. In fact, I'm probably not even going to watch that one live. I'm probably going to get up and make a nice cup of coffee and just watch that one in the morning. I will be up for the sprint race though, because as you said, that one slots right into perfect prime time for us. I'm really excited about the fact that I get a actual race session on Friday for us, which will be kind of a nice way to cap off the week. And yeah, really looking forward to this one. Just not looking forward to being awake at 2 in the morning.
Just remember, epic napping. That's
Yes.
you have to do the epic napping. You don't Iron Man this thing because it'll screw you up. I have no intention of doing that way either. There will be some very epic napping. Probably before the thermal IndyCar race starts, which I think is like 2-3 in the afternoon on Sunday. So I will definitely do my best to recover and get ready for our recap on Sunday night. So we will hopefully get all that out and out to you. So yeah, we're excited. We're ready for round 2. Let's see what this gives us in the dry. Let's see if this technical directive has any teeth to it or if it's much ado about nothing. So we're going to be all over that as we get into things. Stay attuned to our social media. Again, Twitter, X, and Blue Sky are going to be our main sources of live coverage as we go throughout the session. So, all right. I guess we're all set to go. For Cody, it's been Andy. Enjoy this weekend. And as always, may all your laps be fast.